where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for supporting our channel by watching and listening.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Hi, my name is Daryl, and I'm a veteran.
Hey, I'm Travis. I'm an Air Force veteran.
Hey, my name's Jonathan, and I'm a veteran.
Hi, my name's Ashley, and I'm a veteran.
My name is Chad, and I'm a veteran.
Well, hello, everybody. Happy Sunday, and welcome to Conversations with a Vet. My name is Carolee. I have a wonderful guest waiting backstage to come on and tell his story. But before we get to him, for those of you who have not seen my two interviews with Larry Burke, he is a Vietnam veteran and author. Be sure to go out and check out the YouTube channel Conversations with a Vet. You can find, type in Larry Burke, and you can find the original show as well as part 2. A wonderful, wonderful conversation. You can also find his book, Quiet Heroes, Stories from the Front Lines of the Vietnam War by Larry Burke. You can find that on Amazon as well. There are also so many veteran books that have been written, and I try to address each and every one of them. As you can see behind me, that whole row of books back there, those are written by veterans. Some are fiction, some are not. But please take the time, go out and look at some of these books that I bring up beforehand and give some veterans some love. So without further ado, please help me welcome my guest, Tom Harrington.
Hello. How
Good
you doing,
evening.
Kelly?
I'm good. How are you doing, Tom?
Great.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on the channel this evening, and thank you for agreeing to do that. It's interesting because you have been married to also a Marine, female Tammy, and she was a guest several weeks ago on the channel. So obviously there's a lot of conversation there that I want to touch on. But before that, one of the questions that I always like to ask my guests to start the show off is to tell me a little bit about who you were growing up as a child.
Well, I was actually born in Vietnam, and I came to the States during the fall of Saigon in April of 1975. My American dad brought me here. My American mom stayed behind. My Vietnamese mom stayed behind. So I grew up in San Francisco with my dad. And then when he went back for contracting work, I was raised by my aunt and my grandmother in San Francisco. So that's the start of it there.
How difficult was it for you to assimilate? I mean, you were young when you came over. You'd be about how old?
I was about 7. Going on 8. My sister was about 5.
And so the language, was that difficult for you initially, or was that easy to pick up?
No, because we were actually learning it. I actually learned English watching Sesame Street for about 3-4 months. And then when I got into the school system in San Francisco, they put me into like English as a second language.
Nice. I think that's pretty much how everybody here in America learned English, was from Sesame Street.
Right, exactly.
I think that's great. And so tell me about what it was like for you with school, with your education.
School was pretty easy. I mean, I did face some discrimination because, the Vietnam War had just ended. and a lot of the kids in my age, like I was in fourth grade, and they said, "Oh, I don't like you because my uncle was killed in Vietnam," and I didn't understand what was going on. But I mean, you know, overall, I just did, I did well in school, and I just carried on. I didn't think anything of it because in the '70s and '80s, you just like,
Right.
you just tough it out. So, but overall, I had a good childhood, and
Were you in any kind of sports at all? Did you enjoy
yeah,
doing
I
any of
I
that?
was in track and field. So I was a runner. I did the 440 relay, stuff like that. So I was in track and field. I played a little bit of spring football, but I got hit a couple times because I was only 135 pounds, so I got
You
thrown
were
around. I said, well,
tiny.
yeah, that's enough. So
So tell me how it was and what it was that made you decide that you wanted to join the military and specifically the Marine Corps.
well, I had went to a Air Force Junior ROTC school in Melbourne, Florida, called Florida Air Academy. It was a international boarding school, and I was all set to join the Air Force because I wanted to fly planes and all that stuff. But my buddy Bill, uh, he graduated with me in 1987. He said, "Look, I'm going down to the Marine recruit. I'm going to go there. You can go talk to your Air Force recruiter." But when I got in there, the Marine Corps recruiter said, "Why do you want to join the Air Force? Their boot camp's only 6 weeks. They're not going to challenge you. And we have planes in the Marine Corps and this and that." And that's how it happened. So because of Bill, I joined the Marine Corps, but no regrets.
And what was the original MOS that you signed up for?
I'd signed up for enlisted flight crew just to work on C-130s because I was getting my private pilot's license at the time at Florida Air Academy. And that was
Wow.
done through Florida Institute of Technology, which is a university in Melbourne. So they had a partnership with our high school.
Wow, that's an incredible opportunity.
Right, right.
One you can't pass up. So your dad, um, your American dad, tell me about what he had to say when you told him you wanted to go into the military, specifically the Marines.
Yeah, my American dad, he was in the Army in the Signal Corps, and he went to Vietnam in '64 as an advisor, and then he came back in like '67 and stayed until '75 as a civilian contractor. And he thought it was good. He said, the military will teach you, it'll mature you, it'll be good for you. You learn a trade, and if you like it, stay in. If not, you can always get out, and you can do whatever you want from there.
Wow. That's and that's a great attitude, and especially where he had been,
Mhm.
there in an active war, to have some insight for you, I bet helped.
Right.
So you decide, I've signed my papers, I've gone through MEPS, I am now standing on the footprints of soldiers, or excuse me, Marines who have
Marines.
come before you. I had to correct myself. Yes, they are not soldiers.
Right.
They're warriors or Marines. Um, so what was going through your mind while you were standing on those yellow footprints?
Well, I went through boot camp since I graduated from high school in Florida. Um, I went through Parris Island, South Carolina. So they purposely bring you there at 2, 3 in the morning, so you're disoriented. And I didn't have any insight until I got on the yellow footprints, and then they started yelling. And the first couple of days, it's like, what the heck did I do? And we saw other guys say, "Oh man, I gotta call my congressman. I gotta get out. I gotta call my mom." And you know what? I came in with the mentality of, what, they can make it the day as long as they want, but they can't stop time. It's got to end sometime. So I took it day by day, hour by hour, just because
Love
from my background, uh, you know, and I didn't think of it as, it was just something I had to do. It's just like, you signed up and you're obligated, just do it. It'll end one day, 90 days later, you'll be a Marine if you make it. But just do it day by day, and that's what I do.
That's incredible too. You think, that attitude of it's something that has to be done hour by hour, day by day, how, small little bits, one task at a time. That's a great way of looking at that. So you are doing your boot camp. Tell me a little bit about any favorite areas of training that you may have had.
I guess the rifle range, because I had never fired a rifle, so it's something new to me. And then some of the most rewarding time was, I guess, doing a forced march. This was 1987 before they had the Crucible, and we did a forced march, and it was just near the end of graduation. And it was just so emotional that like most of the platoon broke down. It's like, wow, we made it this far. It's just like, we're almost there. We can't believe what we accomplished. And we started with 83 and we graduated with 55.
Wow. So what year did they start the Crucible then? I guess I assumed it was something
88,
they always
89 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So for us, it was called ICT, Individual Combat Training, and then they had BWT, Basic Warrior Training, is what they called it afterwards. But they had that Crucible in after I went through in 87. And actually, just a small note, one of my platoon mates, I met him up in Massachusetts, and he was the director of the VA services up there in Massachusetts. His name is Coleman Nee, and I just found out he's the new, I guess, the chairman for the DAV, the national chairman for the DAV.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, be sure to tell him congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You got somebody, up in the higher ups.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Never a bad thing. So you okay, so they have obviously, the rifle range. Tell me about what your thoughts were on the gas chamber. What was going through your mind with that?
That was the most unexpected experience, because when you're in there and you see your drill instructors or the instructors there, say they're talking normal in their gas mask. Oh, this is not too bad. I'm breathing good air. I got my gas mask on. Nothing's going to happen. Then as soon as you take it off and they try to have you sing the Marine hymn, you're like, oh man, I can't, this is like the worst feeling I've ever felt. So, but you look at it and you couldn't wait to get outside. People were pushing and shoving, but they said, just slow down, grab that recruit in front of you, and then just walk out slowly. And then after that, once you get the air, it was like the most exhilarating feeling ever.
Snot, the whole
Yes,
9 yards.
everywhere.
Yeah.
No, that was, yeah.
It's
Never
always
looked
fun
more
seeing
handsome.
those photos, right? You're like, what in the world just happened?
Right.
So you go through and do all of the basic training stuff, 90 days. Any funny stories that you can recall from that time?
Yeah, there was there's a couple funny stories. One of them was this recruit named Franklin. He got a letter, and it was square away time, so people were just reading mail from home. And one of the on duty and drill instructors saw him and said, "Franklin, what's so funny?" Nothing, sir. I just got a note from my family. He goes, "Come up here." And he had him hold out the note, and for like 30 minutes say, "I want you to laugh." He goes, "Ha ha." He goes, "No, I want you to laugh." So for 30 minutes he goes, "Ha ha ha ha." So for 30 minutes we're trying not to laugh because Franklin's up there trying to do what he's told for the next 30 minutes.
Oh, that's pretty. Oh my gosh, my arms would be dead tired.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're running on adrenaline, and you're so afraid that you do what you're told, so you bypass all your pain and stuff.
So for graduation, was your family there for you during graduation?
No, my dad was actually working overseas in Saudi Arabia. From what he learned in the Army, he was in the Signal Corps, so they were doing satellites and microwave systems. And he was with an American contractor, and they were building satellites and microwave systems for Saudi Arabia. So he was out there. and the rest of my family were out in California. So I graduated by myself, and then we got on the Greyhound bus, and then from there, we went our separate ways.
And then you didn't. What did you go through to? Because you weren't ITB, right?
No, I went through Motor T School, like Camp
Okay.
Johnson, which is off next to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. So
And tell me a little bit about the training that you had there, and how long was it for?
it was a couple months, but the training was, how to drive a Humvee, how to drive a manual stick shift on a 813 because they had them back then, and we all knew how to drive stick shift back in the 70s and 80s. Um, and then from there, you would learn how to do vehicle recovery in the mud, just basic stuff, basic maintenance. So
Interesting. Was there a favorite part of all of that you learned?
no, just you know, realizing how far down you can go in the Humvee and still be underwater. Because if you had the exhaust pipe above the water, it's called a fording kit. You can go in the water up to your nose and still drive because you need that when you're on a ship and they can't get to shore. You have to drive in there, or they'll put you on a what they call a LCAC, landing craft air cushion. So it's like a hovercraft. You can put four Humvees on there, two big trucks, and they take you as close they can, sometimes on shore, and then you just drive off from there. But they tried it for every different scenario that you might encounter.
Wow. That's always interesting, just those little, the adaption part of it all, right?
Right,
Overcome and adapt.
right.
And that's what the Marines do, and they do it well. So you were going through that training, you get through that. Where do you go next?
Uh, Desert Storm was in '90, so we were at Pendleton, and then we went over to Al Jabal, Saudi Arabia, which is a port, and we were tasked with uh, bringing the gear from the ships, the MPS ships, because the Marine Corps and the Navy, well, the U.S. government has what they call MPS ships, military prepositioning ships, and they're civilian ships with military equipment on there. So they can go anywhere in the world within 48 hours. That's why the Marines are always first, and then their equipment comes later. So they were bringing in. So what we did was bring beans, bullets, and band-aids. So beans meaning food, bullets meaning ammunition, whether it's for the Cobras for artillery, and band-aids are for like medical supplies. So we were just running out to different places. We established camp up in the Kuwaiti border, and we were just running back and forth, resupplying different units.
So what was it like, being in a Cold War for so long, right? And now all of a
Right.
sudden everybody is getting, you know, picked up to deploy overseas. What was going through your mind when you first
Well,
got
it
there?
was when I went in, it was peacetime. It was Cold War, so I said, "Oh, I'm here to learn a trade. I'm going to work on this." And you know, when we got the orders to go overseas, it's like, wow, this is real now. We don't know what to expect, but you're on heightened alert. You're scared because you don't know what to expect, and you don't know if what situations you're going to be dropped in, and all that stuff. So you just, like you said, take it day by day. Say, all right, you got 2, 3 boxes of MREs, a case of water. You're going to be gone for a week, so we might leave one day. They load up our stuff, drive a day or two in the convoy down to where it needs to go, drop it off, turn around, pick up more supplies there, and then come back. And then when you drop it at the new unit, spend a day there, whatever, and then head back to your base, and then get your mail, get your food, water. So it just became a routine.
And so most of that time were you living off of MREs?
Yeah, yeah. And I think the longest we went without a shower is like 20, 30 days. But, we had baby wipes and stuff like that. So that was,
So y'all smelled like newborns.
yes, yes, of course. Yeah.
Uh, all right. And how long were you there for?
About 6 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything kicked off beginning of January '91, January, February. Around that time, we got we were done, and they tasked us because some of the units went back early. They tasked us with cleaning the first Marine Division tanks because they had left already. The unit left, and we had to clean their tanks, make sure there was no sand. They were really strict about it. So instead of cleaning our stuff, we were cleaning the tanks stuff. So
Did
you do what
anybody
you're
come in and
told.
clean your stuff after you guys
No, they
left?
were gone. They were back in the States at Pendleton. So
Goodness. So you're going through, you're getting ready to come back.
right.
And before you leave, though, or actually when you first get there, what was it like when you first arrived? What was the scenery like? The
Well,
topography?
that's funny. So we got into Saudi Arabia at night, and of course there were units there before us that got there maybe like a couple months before, and of course, Marines are always jokesters. We have our sea bags and our weapon, and we get on the bus that's taking us from the airport to where we're going to be to stage before we go to our base or wherever we're supposed to go. And these other Marines that were there, with their M16 guarding the bus, whatever. So, oh man, I can't believe we got attacked this, and we're like, oh, what's going on? Because we're like newbies, and they were there like a month or two before, and they were just making up stories trying to scare us. So
Little did they know, right?
yeah.
All right. So you finish that deployment. Do you come right back to the States?
Yeah, and then I went on recruiting duty in '91 to like '93, and I was actually in Daytona Beach. So I was 23 at the time. They gave me BAQ, which is basic allowance for quarters, and my apartment was 375, but they gave me 500. So I thought I was rich, 22, 23. Wow, they're paying for my apartment, and I'm making a couple $100 extra, this and that, because there's no base around Daytona Beach, Florida. Closest one at the time, I think, was like Orlando. The Naval Training Center was still there before they closed that, or Jacksonville at NES. Jacksonville, Naval Air Station, Jacksonville. And that's, I was there for a while. And then I went up to New Jersey, and that I was doing recruiting duty up there. And that's how I met my wife, because she was going to college at Iona, and she came in with one of her friends, and she said, oh, no, I'm just here with him. I'm just seeing what's going on. Anyway, her friend Chris, he joined the Marines and he became a tanker. And then, she read some of the stuff on being a woman Marine and all this stuff. She goes, no, don't give me that stuff. So she read it and she came back, and I guess she was partying too much at Iona. And she said, yeah, I want to join the Marines, but I don't want to sit behind a desk. I want to blow stuff up. So I didn't actually recruit her. I was in the office with the other recruiters. They recruited her, and they sent her out to Yuma, Arizona in Hawk missiles before they disbanded. And that's how she met Travis out there, another good friend of ours.
Yeah. And so for any of you watching, if you have not seen the interview with Tammy Harrington, go out to Conversations with a Vet on YouTube, and you can find that as well. So you meet her, and then she's now in Arizona.
Right.
So how does that end up obviously the ending works, right? But how do you get there?
Right. So I was going to school at night, and I was going to college, and then some of the recruiters up in Jacksonville, because that's where headquarters was, they said, hey, Sergeant Harrington, why don't you look at OCS, being a Marine Corps officer, because I know you want to fly, and we can get you started with that. So in '94, I went into officer candidate school in Quantico, Virginia, and then I was going to school and at night still. And then '95, I went for the senior course, and then I told my recruiter, I said, he said, look, you know what? we really don't need pilots. We know you took the flight ASVAB, you did the EKG, you sat in the wooden box and all that stuff. We need infantry officers. I said, look, I didn't want to. You're going to look at my record book. You see, I was in Motor T. I wanted to go, enlisted flight crew. I said, look, I don't need to fly Harriers or F-18s. I just want a C-130 because my goal was to be a commercial pilot.
Right.
So they said, no, we can't do that, this and that. So I got out and I joined the reserves, and I stayed in New Jersey, and I was in a reserve unit in Red Bank, New Jersey. It was a Motor T unit, so I was there for a while. And Tammy was still in Yuma, Arizona, so her family took me in for all the holidays and stuff because I had no family in New Jersey. And she got done with her enlistment and came back in 1999, and I was going to jungle warfare school in Okinawa up in the northern training area for just like a 3-week thing. So it was something quick because I was still in reserves, but they sent me there. And I came back and I was still in the reserves. And, we started dating after that when she got out in 99, and I came back in 2000 and we started dating.
Wow.
So, and I was working a civilian job doing IT work for a pharmaceutical advertising company, just small 30 people company. And I had 2 other Marines that were in my reserve unit, and we ran the whole department and the whole company because they had satellite offices throughout the Midwest.
Wow. Nice. So you're doing your, what is it? How many times a month would you go for the reserves?
Just 1 weekend a month and then 2 weeks a year. And if you know the unit, the active duty instructor staff, the I&I staff, they say, hey, we got this going here, we got this going here. And you wouldn't want to do stuff like 29 palms in the desert in California. I did that like 7 times. I said, no, that's enough. So I said, look, you're going to Okinawa, and yeah, we need like 5 Marines from our unit. There's going to be 100 Marines going there. So that's why I volunteered to go overseas and do all kinds of stuff instead of doing stuff in the States. So.
Right. I think that's a great story, and I'm super happy for the 2 of you. So tell me then, did you just stay reserves?
Yeah. So in the Marine Reserves, they messed up my paperwork because I was up for Staff Sergeant, which is an E6. And they said, oh, well, you don't have this paperwork. And then we have to get you out on service limits because you've been in 14 years and you have to be an E6. And I said, look, what's the problem? I took it up with the Sergeant Major, everybody. And they said, well, you're missing a fitness report from Quantico. And the major that was supposed to sign it there, he's out and he won't sign. I said, you guys there's got to be something to be done. They said no, because I don't know, the reserves are different than active duty. So I got out and I said, look, I'm not going to waste 14 years. So I decided to join. We don't say the A word in the house because my wife and I are both Marines. I joined an Army Reserve unit that was going to be a drill sergeant unit where they train recruits. So I went there in June 1st, 2001, and then 9/11 happened. And since I wasn't a drill sergeant yet, I stayed with the unit. Most of the guys there went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri to train recruits. So there were about maybe 10 of us. Some were like Marines that got out and went into the Army Reserves because it was so much easier to do that.
Right.
And then in 2003, I got activated. I got sent with an Army Reserve unit in Columbus, Ohio. And it was a transportation unit. And then from there, we went up to into Kuwait. And then we got stationed up in Tikrit, Iraq, Saddam's hometown. And we were at Forward Operating Base Spiker in Tikrit. So we were there for 13 months because my contract was up and I was stop loss for another 9 months. So I didn't come back till March 2005.
Oh, goodness. Goodness gracious. All right. So you finished that deployment.
Right.
And then what?
Then I got out on medical because I got hit with an IED a couple times.
A couple
So
times.
yeah, so nothing
One
serious where I had to
one
get
wasn't
early.
enough.
No, it was amateur night there, so they had to try again. So, but so I told the guys,
Overachiever, right?
yeah, right. So I told the guys in the Army Reserve, they called me Gunny because they think all older Marines, because I was 36 at the time. These kids are like 17, 18, 19, whatever. And they all call me Gunny. I said, look, I'm not a gunnery sergeant. Oh, Gunny, oh, yeah. They would ask for my advice. I said, all right, well, the reason why I'm here is uh, the Army said they were looking for a few good men. So here I am. So.
I love it. I love it. That's funny. And that bantering, right,
Right,
between the
right,
branches, I think is just, it's great. I think it's
right.
uplifting too,
And there
morally,
were some great
or
guys.
not morally, but for the morale.
Right,
Let's
right.
clarify
And
that.
my partner in Iraq, he's a 19-year-old farm kid from Illinois, and he became the best man at my wedding when we came back, and I married Tammy in 2005.
Nice.
I went back on leave for 2 weeks in September 2004, got married at the courthouse, and then we had the celebration March 2005. And guys from all over, they drove from Michigan, from Illinois, from Iowa, and they just drove like on short notice to come to the wedding. So that's
Wow.
camaraderie between all the branches.
Yes. Yes. So important. And you're sharing a common, event
Right.
and such, and getting to know them. I think that's amazing. So from there, after you go through all of that, you get married, and now what? What happens?
So I'm out, and then Tammy got out of the Marine Corps, and she applied for Port Authority of New York and New Jersey on the police department. So she got accepted. She started that. Um, she applied in like 2002, and then they took 4 or 5 years, and she finally got accepted. Went in to the police academy January 2007. So from that point on, um, we had one son already, and then we 2007 my daughter was born, and then 2010 my last son was born. So I have 3 kids. So it was decided, since I was medically retired, I really couldn't do anything. So I um, decided to be Mr. Mom. So I had the opportunity to raise my kids, so which is amazing because a lot of parents don't, because they have to work. There's 2 parents in the household that have to work, but I was fortunate enough to be able to raise the 3 kids.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how it was for you transitioning back to civilian life. Did they provide you any kind of resources before you got out?
Um, Not really at the time. It was just like, here, go see the VA, and see what they can do for you. You know. So
And were you able to get 100% disability?
yeah, it took about 5 or 6 years, but in 2010 I finally did. Um, and I had neck surgery, so there's titanium in my neck at C5.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, it just took a while, but you just have to keep going and going.
Yeah.
So
That had to have been a scary moment,
yeah,
or moments if it was,
yeah,
happened twice.
yeah.
Uh,
But it's a funny story because the second one was the worst. It was Logston. That was my partner. He was driving, and we were driving a bobtail, which is the tractor trailer. It's just the tractor, not the trailer. So it's a
mhm.
bobtail. And I was on the 50 cal going backwards, and he was driving this way. The convoy's going this way. And all of a sudden we hear boom up front. So they set an IED, which was artillery shell with ball bearings, rocks, nails, whatever they could
Ugh.
find, C4, tied to a cell phone. And they would have a spotter. They would have the phone number ready, and then they would hit dial and create a spark and go off. So the first one went off, and I go, Lawson, what happened? He goes, ah. I go, what? Did you get hit? He goes, no, I dropped my M&Ms. I said, I'll get you a pound of M&Ms. What's going on? He goes, oh, yeah, we're getting ambushed up front, because it was a normal occurrence. And we've been in country 9 months, like, oh, yeah, we're getting ambushed again. So,
Oh,
but,
man.
that was just one of the funny stories about it. So there's you try to make fun and see humor and stuff,
Yes.
and the first ambush, we got caught going. They sent us the wrong way on a pontoon bridge across the Tigris River, and at the end they had a big metal pipe, and our tractor trailers couldn't go through. So two of them got stuck in there, and I was the third one. So I was able to turn around, and while they were backing it up, they had a call to prayer. So all these guys started getting on the rooftops, and we were getting ambushed. We were going through, and I was firing this way. And all of a sudden, I looked down. I'm like, oh man, I got hit or something. I'm burning, whatever. We get out, and the medics are coming around, and they're saying, anybody got hurt? I said, well, I got to find out where I got hurt before I could tell the docs. So, and I didn't get hit. I got, what happened was when you're firing out the window, the M16, the brass hit the window and it hit my stomach. So I got like brass burns. And if I had told the medics that I got hit and they didn't find anything, they found out it was brass burns, they would have brought it up to the whole platoon, the whole company. I would have been the laughing stock. So, oh, this old Marine doesn't know what he's doing, whatever. But like I said, we make fun of it, but nobody knows about it. I just tell some of the guys, that we're in the.
Well, now everybody knows about it because we are live, by the way.
But yeah, we try to make fun of stuff like that. So, like, same with the M&Ms with Logston. I send them a pound of M&Ms every year on September 24th, and and he's actually retiring in July from the Army. So he's a E9 Sergeant Major. So he's retiring. I'm going to be at his retirement. His wife and kids grew up with my wife and kids, and they come down for vacation. We go. So, it's just, that camaraderie that you can't find anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me about going back to the original thing that you said is that your American dad.
Right.
So I know obviously there's a story there behind that. And
yes.
So explain to those who are watching and who will be watching this as a recording later on, what came about being that you were born in Vietnam.
Right. So what happened was in the county, Bergen County, New Jersey, I was going to college for computer science, but I needed some certification. So the county sent me to night school to get my Microsoft certification. I get a call from my dad, who happened to be living in Orlando at the time. His name is Gary. And he calls me up and he said, look, there's somebody that called and they said they have information about your mom. But I would just be leery because, it might be a scam. They might want money, whatever. But if it's true, these are the three questions that you need to ask. Where did I meet your mom? Where I took her on her first date, and what I bought her dad for his farm in Vietnam. I said, okay. So I called the number and it's in Davenport, Iowa. So I called and the lady answered and I said, hi, my name's Tom Harrington. My Vietnamese name is Nguyen Van To. And she goes, To, it's me. Ma Chin means mom number 9. Because in Asia, they do, since they have so many kids, they do it by numbers. So like this, your aunt number 1, your uncle number 2. She was 9 out of 13 kids. So we call her Ma, which means mom, and Jin, which means 9. So, and I said, wait. So the guy came on the line. He was Vietnamese, but he spoke a lot better English than my mom did at the time. So he kind of translated. And while we were talking, and I said, look, where did, you meet my dad? And she had all the answers. And then during the conversation, which took place for about an hour, she started sending me pictures of me and my sister and my dad back and forth. And at that point, I said, look, I got to come. I said, well, what are you doing in Davenport, Iowa? I thought you would be in like Southern California, like Little Saigon. And she could speak English well enough. She goes, too many Vietnamese people. So that's where I get my sense of humor. So I come to find out she was looking for me since 1999. She got sponsored to come to Iowa in 1999, and she showed me a stack of letters uh, addressed to Gary Edward Harrington, Houston, Chicago, Seattle, because they had phone books and they had people all over trying to look for anybody with that name. It said, my name is so and so. I had 2 kids, this and that. You were, this and that. And she showed me this, like maybe 35 letters. And I said, look, you know what? I got to come and meet you. And I convinced my sister from California to fly out to Davenport, and we met her in June of 2006. My daughter was just born in March 2006, so she got to meet her granddaughter and her other grandson. And from there, it was hectic because everybody wanted to know the story, and I was getting pulled left and right. So we get back to New Jersey. My wife said, "Look, it was pretty hectic. Why don't you go back there and you just spend time with your mom?" I said, "Okay, no problem." So I go spend time with her, and then we're just looking through pictures and stuff like that. And then I noticed a picture. There was, I thought he was British at the time because he was saluting like this. And I said, "Oh, who's this guy?" And he goes, "Oh, that's Michael. That's your father." I said, "No, Gary's my dad." He goes, "No, that's your real father." And I was shocked. So I took the pictures. I brought them back with me to New Jersey. I scanned them and I started looking online. And I couldn't find anything about it because I was looking for a British journalist. So it didn't show up. And that was the picture there of Michael. And that's a press uniform. It's a Australian uniform, but it says press on there because he wasn't in the Australian Army. He was just, attached with them. And he got attached with different units over there. The guy who wrote the article, Hugh Lund, was attached with the Marines at Da Nang, and he knew my dad. So that's how it started. So I was working at this pharmaceutical advertising company in New Jersey, and my friend Ed, who did marketing intelligence at the time, he would do research on new drugs or whatever. So he's had the idea to put a request to the Australian Vietnam veterans. And he put in there, said, "Hey, look, my friend is looking for information about this. His dad, his name was Michael Birch, this and that. I heard he was a journalist." And out of the blue, a guy named Paul Asbury from Brisbane, Australia, he said, "Hey, I was an officer in the Australian Army. I was a lieutenant. I know of the incident, but I didn't know any of the people involved. But I'm going down to the Jungle Warfare School in Australia. And I'm going to ask one of the guests there, and his name is Tim Page, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning photojournalist, a British photojournalist."
Wow.
So what happened was Paul Asbury goes down to the Jungle Warfare School in Australia for a reunion, and he's talking to Tim Page is sitting here, and there's another guy sitting here. And he goes to Tim Page, "Hey, Tim, there's somebody in America looking for information about one of the journalists called Michael Birch," because Tim had wrote a book called Requiem about all the photojournalists, all the journalists that died in Vietnam. So he knew Tim might know something. Well, this guy over here drops his drink. He goes, "Mate, what did you just say?" He goes, "Oh, some kid's looking for information about Michael Birch." So this guy over here, his name is Ross Gilligan. He goes, "Mate, he was my best mate. I was with him when he volunteered to go to Vietnam." And he said, "If anything happens to me, take care of my mom, give her, whatever I get for a pension, and the rest donate to charity, whatever." So Ross Gilligan gets a hold of me, and we're talking on the phone. He's in Australia, I'm in America, and we're doing video. And he goes, "Hey, Tom, this is Ross Gilligan." He goes, Michael was my best mate. I named my first son after him. His name is Michael Gilligan. He goes, I have another son. His name is Benjamin, and he's in Washington, D.C. He's going to marry an American girl. I'll be out there in 6 months. I would love to meet up with you. So six
That
months
gave me
later,
chills.
we drove down to Washington, D.C. We meet with Ross Gilligan, and Ross had a stack of paperwork from my dad. And it was all the stuff that he had with the Australian Associated Press. After he got killed, Ross went down there, grabbed all the paperwork, told the secretary, look, you're not going to need this anymore. So he grabbed it. He gave me all this stuff. And that's how, he's Uncle Ross. And then about a year later, Uncle Ross comes back to America to see his son, and he comes up to New York. And I had my mom come out from Davenport, Iowa, and I put him in the back room. They talked for a couple hours, and she said, look, you know what? I told Michael not to go out because it was during 1968, May 5th, 1968. They had the first Tet Offensive in January 1968, and they were supposed to obey the ceasefire at the time. But the Viet Cong had attacked the Chinese section of Saigon called Cholon. And my dad, along with another British journal, two more Australian journalists, one British journalist, and American, and they went into this alley in their little, it's called a mini moke. It's like a small Jeep. And they got ambushed by this Vietnamese captain who thought they were CIA because they had trousers on, they had collared shirts, long sleeve shirts and stuff. And they said, my dad said, no, we're the press in Vietnamese so he can understand. But he shot him, and 4 of them were killed. And Frank Palmos, one of the Australian journalists, he played dead. And while he heard the Vietnamese captain reload his pistol, Frank got up, ran back to the news agency, and he told them what happened. And then afterwards, there was an American named Zaylen Grant and Wallace Terry. Wallace Terry wrote a book that they were going to make into a movie called The Black Experience in Vietnam. So they went in, and they wouldn't. The U.S. Army wouldn't let them in there. So about 5 hours later, they pulled them out, and they retrieved the bodies. But at that time, my mom was 3 months pregnant with me, and Michael Birch knew that.
And is this your mom here?
Yes, that was my mom in 1968. She was 20 years old at the time.
What a beautiful lady.
Yeah, thank you.
And then, so here.
Right, that was Michael. He was about 22 there. That was some of his photos for the newspaper. But he did a lot of work. He went, he went to Italy to get an interview with the Italian prime minister. He was like one of the only ones, or the youngest one, to do it from Australia or something. So,
wow. And then there were some other photos here. So this one here,
right, and that's Bruce Piggott right there, and Bruce Piggott's on the left. He was one of the Australian journalists that was killed, and Hugh Lund is the guy on the right. He's the one that wrote the article that knew my dad.
Wow. So I can only imagine the kind of emotions going through you just learning that your mom is alive. Now, when you talked about your American dad, was the assumption when you were there before all of this that he was your dad, your biological dad?
Yeah, I didn't see anything different. I mean, growing up, I didn't know anything, and he called me up. I told him what happened. I said, look, Dad, no matter what happens, whatever I find out, you're still my dad because you're the one that brought me to the States and, gave me a better life because a lot of people were left behind. And he said, look, I don't think I would have been able to live with myself if I left you there and just brought your sister.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so you find this out, but at that time, I mean, you knew nothing different, right?
No,
You
no.
assumed that was your father, your
Mhm.
biological father.
Right,
So now you hear that he's not.
right.
I mean, what did that do to you emotionally?
I looked at it a lot different. I said, you know what? I can't be mad at him for not telling me earlier. He did me the biggest favor of my life. Is he brought me to the States and
Right.
he adopted me and made me his son. So it was just like, wow, never expected this, but it was just, I looked at it as gratitude. Not like I wasn't upset at him at all. I said, look, I'm not upset that you didn't tell me. You did it for whatever reason you needed to. I said, I respect that, but I respect you even more for bringing me to the States.
Right. Now,
So,
this story here, is this something that had been published or
yes.
okay?
And so, in finding out with all this information, that first article, that was me on my passport. I was 2 years old. And if you look on the side here, by my ear, it says Gary Harrington because he had to sign it. But that was on my passport when I was two,
Okay.
and that was issued through the U.S. State Department in Saigon. So I still have that picture.
So I
I
see
still have the
Tom
actual
Harrington, and then is Gary
Gary.
the
Yep.
okay.
So I still have that passport. So
That is just crazy. And then, so your mom is in the States, and your sister is in the States
right.
now. And then this is you.
Yeah, that was the boot camp picture in 1987.
Wow.
So they tell you not to smile, and that's not actually a dress blue uniform. You have your camis underneath. You're hot and sweaty. They tell you to wipe your face with a paper towel so you don't. And then it's velcroed in the back, and it's a smock. It only goes up to your chest. And
Right.
then they find
Right.
a cover that fits your head. So
They still do that, by the way.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they still do that. Um, and then let's see. Okay. And then this is this your mom here?
right. And that was my daughter in 2006, and that's my sister on the right. So that's when she got to meet my daughter for the first time. And then my son was born in 2010, and we had her fly out to New Jersey to witness the birth of my second son, my third child.
That is amazing. I'm so happy for you that you were able to find your family, or that your mom found you,
Right,
and then you were able to piece together your family history,
right,
and then being still in contact with everybody, right?
right.
Um, I think that's just an incredible story. So, okay, tell me about these gentlemen here. So,
Now, I had went to Australia. Well, this is another story where I found out that Frank Palmos was still alive, and Hugh. I didn't know about Hugh Lund, but I knew Frank Palmos. He's the guy that played dead that escaped, and here he is 84. I went to Australia to find my family roots, and I found out he was in Brisbane, so I flew up that morning and spent 3 4 hours with him because I had to go somewhere else in Australia later on that day. But I got to meet Frank, and I got to meet Hugh in the hat, and they said, "Oh, your father was witty and this and that and all that stuff." And Hugh told me a story. He said, I was stationed attached with the Marines in Da Nang in '68, and I had blonde hair. And then when your dad showed up, he said, "Oh, who's this Sheila here attached with the Marines? How come they have a girl up here?" Because that's how they call females in Australia, Shirley's. And when he got closer, he found out it was Hugh. He just had long hair, and he was just like letting it air out. So he said, my dad has a sense of humor, and he could tell I had a sense of humor. So it was good to hear from them. It was just like wow, these guys, knew my dad, and they had no idea of me until we did DNA testing, and that's another story. But it was just like, wow, we didn't know Michael had a son. We didn't know anything about you until now. So
Michael didn't know he had a son.
well, Michael knew he had a kid. He didn't know it was a boy or a girl because my mom was 3 months pregnant at the time.
Oh,
So,
okay. So he did know.
yes, he did.
Okay, because
So that's why he told her,
okay,
Michael, don't go. It's too dangerous. And Michael said, look, that's my job. I have to go. So
that makes a little more sense.
right.
This is just an absolute wonderful story.
Yeah, and that was from a couple years ago. That's my oldest son, Doug, my wife, my daughter Kennedy, and my youngest Austin down there. But Doug is 27. He just got married last month. My daughter there, she is now she just finished school. She's going to be a junior at Ohio State University. She's on the figure skating team, stuff like that. He's
Wow.
home here for the summer. And then my youngest, Austin, there, he's 15, but he's 6 feet tall, and he's like size 14 shoes. Meanwhile, my wife's 5'2", I'm 5'8", and but meanwhile, my other nephews, they're like 6 feet tall because I guess it's my wife's German, Irish, and English heritage.
Yeah, the
It's
genes
just
on
generation.
on that side.
Right,
I just think that's absolutely amazing. And
right,
I mean, just that story in general and how everything came to be, I think is amazing.
right.
Um,
And I found out through DNA. I did ancestry DNA, and one of my American cousins here, she's a retired school teacher. Her name is Lee, and she said, "Oh, I was just looking up, and it said, look, you might have a match with somebody in Australia." And I said, all right. So they found out my cousin, her name is Shelly. That was another article that they wrote. Shelly. Uh, so come to find out, Shelly and I were born in '68. Her mom is Carol. My dad was Michael. They were cousins. Their uh, grand their grandparents, Michael's grandparents and Carol's grandparents, were sisters, one of 6 sisters. And I found out they immigrated from Northern Ireland in a town called Enniskillen, and the clan was the Maguire clan. And they came to Australia uh, in a place called Port Fairy at the southern coast. If you watch the movie Point Break,
mhm,
and they have a beach called Bell's Beach where
yeah.
Keanu Reeves goes after Patrick Swayze. Well, that's the area. Port Fairy is a little south of there. So they came from Northern Ireland, the Maguires, and they settled in Port Fairy. So I found out, more about my heritage, my ancestry, and my next goal is to go to Enniskillen, Northern Ireland. It's about 2 hours north northwest of Dublin. So,
That's just incredible.
so
I
that
am
was
so happy for you.
yeah, and that was why I said, look, in November 2025, I brought my friend Ed, who was 75, and I said, Ed, I don't know if you want to go, but I want you to go with me because you're the one that started this whole ball rolling. So we flew to Perth, visited Michael's grave, and my grandfather, Graham Yolan Birch, who was a World War II vet with the Anzac forces, Australian, New Zealand Armed
Okay.
Forces. Um, and then from there, we spent time with my cousin. She drove us from Melbourne all the way down to Port Fairy. And that's when I found out Frank was up in Brisbane. So last minute flight, like the next day, I said, look, Ed, we got to go. This is why we're here. I'm here to find Michael's grave, to meet my cousin Shelly, and to see if Frank Palmos is still around. And we flew up to Brisbane that morning, spent 3 or 4 hours with them, and then flew back because after that we were heading back home, and we had a flight from Brisbane to Japan to go back to the States. So I would
Wow.
like to spend a full day with them, but it was just the best 3 hours I could have ever wished for.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. So, for those of you watching, if you have any questions for Tom, go ahead and get those put in the chats for me now. Out of all of your time in service, where was your favorite place to go?
I think Okinawa. I mean, I wish I had spent more time there, but it was just it's beautiful out there in Okinawa. I mean, they have some of the best scuba diving, coral reefs and stuff. Just the people are nice, and I when my wife retired last year, I said, look, let's go to Japan, and I took my wife and 3 kids, went to Japan. We loved it. I mean, the people are so great there. They're so hospitable, and even when we came back we had a layover in Hawaii before we went back to the States, and we stayed a couple days in Hawaii because we have military. We could stay on military base, whatever. And we went to one of the places, and they said, "Oh, we just got back from Japan. Oh, thank you for visiting our country. Did you like it? And where did you go?" They're just great people.
Right.
So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
If you had if you had, let's say, your son, daughter, who wanted to join the military, and regardless of branch, what words of wisdom would you like to bestow to them?
Well, I would tell them, say, look, it's whatever you decide to do, have an end goal. If you're going to go in, what are you going to get out of it? I went to enlisted flight crew. They said, no, you're going to be motor T instead. So, but stick with it. That happened with Tammy. She wanted something else, and they gave her open contract, and she said, no, I want, you promised me this. This is what I want. So I would say, get the job you want, and there's no such thing as no. It's just the recruiters didn't understand your question. And being on recruiting duty, I know that if they don't have a job here, they can call another recruiting station. Hey, we want that job, and we'll give you this job, so they can trade. Make the time of it. I said that you could be sitting on a ship off the coast of Italy watching the sunrise and say, wow, I'm 19, I'm getting paid for this. Don't worry about people back home. If they love you, they'll still be there. But don't sit in the barracks. Just go and enjoy life. You're getting paid to go on to these foreign countries. You're not going to have a lot of time, but make the most of your time that you have. Get something out of it. If you like it, stay in. If not, get out and go to college. They'll pay for your college or trade school or whatever you want to do. But I think people should go in because it will mature you, if anything. It'll teach you to work with different people, but it will mature you.
Right. I mean, provides a lot of discipline at a minimum, right? But it does teach you how to better adapt to certain situations, different types of people.
Right.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So I am not seeing any comments or questions as of yet. I do have Jason says, thank you for your service and Semper Fi. And of course,
thank you, Jason.
For everybody out there, please like, subscribe, and share to help us get this out there to the masses. Happy Memorial Day weekend as well. We must remember those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for us here today, or this weekend, holiday weekend, I guess I should say. So, but yes, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you come and join us tonight. And any last words that you want us to know?
No, I appreciate you doing this because it's getting not just my story out, other vets' story out, and there's things that people don't realize about the military, what they went through, and how they got to the point that they're at right now. It's because of the military, and a lot of veterans I talk to say, oh, I should have stayed in, or the Marine Corps or the Army, Navy, made me what I am today. I have this because of them.
Right.
So it's bringing a broader audience, and it's we're we're humans like everybody else. It's not, we're not, in it for oh, let's be what. That's not, I'm a normal person. I have wife, kids, all that stuff.
Exactly.
So my job is different than yours. I have a different purpose than your job. So.
Right. And you all have feelings.
Right.
I find that interesting how a lot of people just make the assumption because you have such a tough exterior.
Right.
That you don't have any feelings. And
Right.
that's far from the truth.
Right. Well, yeah, they have a saying in the Marine Corps where you have to be tough and you have to be hard and say, well, suck it up. You have to be harder than woodpecker lips. I said, well, that makes no sense, but that's a Marine Corps thing. Oh, harder than woodpecker lips.
Yeah, that's right.
They're going into one, they don't have lips, but their beaks are hard to go into the trees and stuff.
So, well, again, I want to thank you very much. And if you want to stick with me here for a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to wrap this up. So for everybody who has been out there today, thank you very much. And at this time, I do not have a guest for next Sunday. However, please be sure to check the comments and I will be sure to let everybody know if we have something coming up for next Sunday. Either way, happy Memorial Day. Please read the names of those who have given the ultimate sacrifice and never forget them. And everybody be safe out there. Let's see if I can get this running here. I don't know if I can. Mm-hmm. We'll see. That's kind of how things go today. There we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.